Okay, so the message that I'm getting from Spirit regarding this season, this March Pisces season, and how significant this period is, we are releasing a lot of emotions. This period is very much a spiritual bath, is what I'll say. This is a spiritual bath or like a great rain, right? A great downpour. There's a lot of emotions that are being released, and these are subconscious emotions. These are emotions in a dream state. These are emotions of childhood, emotions regarding relationships. There are a lot of emotions that are being released, and a lot of these emotions that are being released they're being released through the subtle body. So they're coming out in a very subtle way, but it's very profound. And we don't necessarily understand how profound that is, right? We could have a simple prayer or simple meditation or simple exercise and get these emotion that comes forward, and we release it through tears or through a moment of frustration and realize that emotion has been cleansed, like it has been removed, right? Just going through the experience of the frustration or the agitation or the subconscious phobia or the subconscious fear or the childhood memory, just experiencing it at this time in the Pisces season is actually helping us to rid it completely, clear it out completely. And in the way that we're relating to it differently. So there's a sense of emotional maturity that's happening in this Pisces season where we are actually relating to our emotions differently, and we're relating to our emotions with a sense of compassion and a sense of we're being genuine with our emotions. And I feel many of us, we're not very genuine with our emotions, and any area of this emotional self that we have not been genuine, or we have been denying, or we have been very aggressive towards these emotions, or judgmental, or shaming these emotions, or just very fearful to actually allow these emotions to the surface. This Pisces season is really giving us this encouragement, but it's very gentle, and it's very giving us this gentle nudge, right, towards opening up, right, to these emotions, and for this final release that's happening. And a lot of this final release that's happening is about the recognition of the inner child, right, and the acceptance of the inner child, because a lot of us, we judge it, we have shame, we deny it, we're trying to we place all kinds of logic reason why the inner child doesn't exist or it's not important, right? But a lot of us are realizing that inner child does represent the sort of fulfillment at a soul level, and the fulfillment within love, right? We know the inner child represents that unconditional love that when we were 5 to 9 years old. And we're really healing any sort of pain around the inner child. It could be from parents, it could be from classmates at school, teachers, it could be from an environment that was maybe very harsh or judgmental or very confining or restricting for the inner child. And a lot of us are coming into this place where we are finally, when I mean finally, is it for a lot of us, it took us some time, right? Some time to really embrace these emotions from a perspective of guiding us rather than from a perspective of causing pain or causing a challenge. Because a lot of us have been relating to our emotions as though it's a challenge. I don't want to feel because it's a challenge. It's a challenge, right? And a lot of us are starting to understand that a part of creativity is about the embrace and the expression of emotions. And a part of creativity, that what makes it very extraordinary and unique and very individualized, is that it it represents the journey of emotions, right? And the journey of sorrow and the journey of grief, but also the journey of acceptance and forgiveness, and the journey to actually release yourself of, you could say, these negative emotions that a lot of us harbor, right? That really causes us to block emotions or to deny emotions. And in doing so, we have denied and we have blocked love, because the acceptance of emotions is the same thing as accepting love, right? We talk about being emotionally unavailable. Basically is saying that we are not available to the inner child and to our creativity, and we're not available to our healing. And we know any relationship that actually is fulfilling is a healing relationship. Either it's a conscious healing, right, where it's like a meditation or a prayer, or you're taking a bath together, right, or it's an unconscious healing where you're just listening to each other, and that listening and sharing actually is very, very therapeutic and very healing. Right? But we know that the resistance that we've had to accept our emotions and to embrace our heart's desires, you could say, or this sense of freedom, right? To be yourself, right? And that's basically to be emotions, right? To be emotional in a way that you're no longer sort of, having a sword with it, right? A lot of us have had a sword, right? We've had our sword up, right? Because we have been, for some of us, afraid to be attacked emotionally, right? Because we know emotionally we do have a sense of weakness, right? And that's vulnerability, right? Discussing about, our pain or grief, or about things that have triggered us or upset us. And we're beginning to realize, in order for us to truly move on into the April, May, June season, the spring season, and into the summer, right? Into this fertile place, we do really have to kind of clean out house emotionally, right? So this downpour, it's like a rain that's happening, right? Or we're being guided to just sleep and relax, and really being guided to even self-care. And a lot of this self-care can involve water, like being around the ocean or a river or a lake, or just drinking a lot of water, right? That is very, very healing for the emotions. And a lot of us, our intuition is getting clearer. Now that we're releasing the emotions subtly, our intuition is actually getting a lot clearer, right? Our throat chakra, our third eye, as well as our heart chakra is really opening and blooming, because I do believe this springtime really is about having it's really about a blossoming of a newfound creativity, right? And a part of what's going to help us get this newfound creativity is about the awakening and the sort of embrace of emotions. So a lot of us are getting tapped into our inner child, and we're getting curious and fascinated with the spirituality, right? The spiritual side of ourselves, right? Especially with this Pisces season, we're getting a lot more loving towards ourselves, and we're feeling a lot more loving towards the earth and other people. And we're also in becoming more loving, we're also really clearing away these false connections or these false relationships that we know in our heart that have been very damaging for us, and we are actually clearing out these connections. So like really we're really like reevaluating the connections that we've had or had in the past, and any relationships that we have right now, and we are being very compassionate, right, towards these people, but we're also really taking back our emotional power. And we're really understanding what reciprocity is, and we're understanding what relationships cause us just straight up emotional imbalances, and what relationships actually cause a lot of emotional turmoil, because there is no reciprocity. Meaning, we're really clearing away these relationships that are based off of blocking love. And a lot of times when we block love, we sabotage ourselves in the way that we go for relationships that we know are not going to emotionally fulfill us. And it's a way to kind of block ourselves because we don't feel we're entirely worthy of unconditional love. So we do go for relationships that there's an absence of love, or emotionally unavailable, where the person is doesn't know how to give love, right, and receive love. And a lot of us are really getting into this inner mantra of like, I deserve love, right? And in the deserving of love, we're really restoring our faith in love, in having, fulfillment in a connection that's very sincere, and how we are really kind of restoring this I deserve love affirmation, right, is through accepting the inner child. That that emotional place is very tender, it's very soft, it's very vulnerable, but it has this creativity, this creativity that we desire to integrate into our career, right? Our career, in our sort of projects and endeavors, right? And in these newfound creativity is actually going to give us more abundance and more sense of a family connection, because we're really desiring to really move out of relationships or partnerships that don't give us that sort of family, that family joy, right? Where there's dysfunction and there's all kinds of disruptions and unavailable things and overall there's no reciprocity. We're really like clearing away these sort of connections or ties that we've had, relationship wise, even with the past, that we really didn't feel reciprocity. We really didn't feel a balance between give and take, right? It didn't feel like we could really be ourselves to the fullest, right? We didn't feel like we could really express our love to the fullest because either we were blocking it or they were blocking it, or the relationship just really wasn't supportive of us being emotional and expressing that emotion very, openly and in it to be received and to for it to be received and supported, right? Encouraged. So a lot of us are really taking back our emotions, right? We are taking the power of our emotions, we're taking it back. So a lot of us, in these past relationships, you could say, where there was no reciprocity, emotionally we could have felt very drained or burned out by these past relationships, and a lot of us are recharging, right, emotionally, and that's why we're being guided to like have spiritual baths and kind of go by the ocean and just sit by the river or the lake or drink a lot of water, right? Or just even the Pisces period can also be one about just tapping into your inner child through creativity, right? Like art making or sculpting or pottery or music, or it's just really like letting loose in a way that we haven't let loose probably in years, honestly. Letting loose in a way that we're really tapping into this joy frequency. And this joy frequency is about laughter. It's about really following your heart, right? Being enthusiastic. And it's really about like opening up to a perspective that involves love being reciprocity, and love being magical, and love having this sort of mysterious quality that's actually, it's not just a challenge, right? It's like we surrender to the unknown. Like we're okay with the risk, right? We're not looking at the risk or the unknown or the uncertainty like, oh, it's a challenge. I need to challenge and control the challenge, right? We've been looking at love like, mystery and something uncertain, something unknown is actually quite like eye-opening, and it's actually something I'm going to surrender to, right? So a lot of us are clearing away these past anxieties that we've had due to relationships or even in childhood, where we have had this fear of the unknown, or fear of taking a risk, or fear of being uncertain, or fear of basically a fear of love, because everything about love is very uncertain, it's very unknown, it's very mysterious, but it's very magical, and we're really believing in ourselves in love, and believing in the way, in our partnerships, and we're actually really getting clear and decisive about the relationships we're letting go of. Like it's almost like we're really we're having these realizations of why we're letting them go, and we're actually feeling very content with letting these relationships go, because we actually have this understanding in a deep sort of unconscious or conscious level that there actually is a partnership that is being realized for many of us in the spring, even summer months, that actually is so much more fulfilling than what we were giving ourselves credit for. A lot of us, we were basically in many ways just allowing these relationships, us to continue to play them out emotionally, right, to the point where we're emotionally drained or worn down or really in a low depressed state. And a lot of us are really kind of recognizing that first, that we deserve love, and that secondly, reciprocity in a connection really is going to require us as an individual to be more genuine, right? And to show up more fully in our expression, that we can't half-ass things. We can't, constantly self-doubt and constant second guessing, right? A lot of us are realizing that love is about diving, right? It's like diving into it. Like you walk into the ocean. You don't really just put your toe in it. You usually just kind of run in, and a lot of us have that, that kind of shock when you kind of go, you kind of jump into the ocean and it's a little cold, right? And you're like, you're shivering because it's really cold. But there's a sense of like warming up, right? There's a sense of like warming up, right? And there's a sense of it's like it shocks you in a way that actually enlivens you. Like when you go into the cold ocean, you like jump in and you're just like shivering, and then you start breathing, very deeply and very, very, very deeply, and the shock of it does something to you internally, and it really enlivens you. It almost like it wakens you, right? The deeper you, like a deeper breath or a deeper heart or a deeper sensation moves through you. And a lot of us are having this shock of new love that's coming in is actually this shock of love that's happening is actually like enlivening us. It's wakening us in a deeper level. And it's really because we've decided to actually go in and to experience the shock of it, right? And it's awakening us in a deeper level, and it's actually igniting some sort of powerful creativity that we're kind of maybe dull, or feeling like emotionally worn down, emotionally drained, or feeling emotionally kind of tied up, or feeling like a challenge. Like everything emotionally is a challenge. So we try to ignore and deny these emotions because we really were relating to them from a negative place of like challenge for many of us collectively. And now we're really starting to understand that, these emotions are being released subtly right now in this Pisces season. And that in the release of it, we're actually getting this sort of inspiration that's kind of just channeling through us. Like we're just literally channeling energy, like through the subtle body. Because as we really begin to release emotions and really allow the water, kind of like let the rain come, right? We're no longer, firstly, the emotions are not coming out so aggressively anymore. Like when they used to come out like pain and they used to come out real, almost violent, or really low, right? Really depressing. I feel like a lot of us have like graduated beyond that period where a lot of the emotions that come out become so like low, like pain, like when they come out, it's like depression, like where we can't even like, sleep or eat for like a couple days or even a week because it's just so low. I feel like a lot of us have experienced that over the years, where it's like when you get low in your emotions, where you feel grief, you feel it so deep. And the reason we had to go through that over these couple years for many of us is that we had actually were carrying deep grief that wasn't just of us, it was of our parents, society, of the generations before us. So a lot of us actually chose to go through these really rough periods that maybe were triggered by past relationships that really brought up like real core wounds of past lives and of our parents and generations. And a lot of us chose to actually go through those deep depressions, dark night of the souls, where it was like we couldn't even move, like we just sit in bed for like all day because it's just crying all day or feeling really, really low and like depressed. And we tried to cope with it, maybe even through substances, or we try to cope with it through denial or just trying to distract ourselves. But either way, we actually got through a very years for many of us of really having like deep emotions being purged and like healed. And these deep emotions were very, very painful for a lot of us because firstly, we don't know how to cope appropriately because no one really teaches us how to cope with emotions. They just tell us to like shove it away, or just go shove it away, or just drink alcohol and drink it away. That's what they say in like the country songs, right? Or just find, like you cry, you're upset over a girl, just find another girl and that will make your tears go away. Like that's what we're taught. And it's not many tools on how to, heal our emotions. That's where we're all kind of confused about how do I deal with these emotions, because nobody knows how, right? Because the whole like rebound stuff of, oh, you know, your girl left you, just go get another girl, that doesn't really work, right? Or it's not very, it's like a very short term sort of effect. We know the alcohol thing doesn't really work, right? Because it suppresses the emotions, but it really just keeps them locked away and out of our view, but still kind of festering inside of us. So a lot of us, we tried the ways of the past in dealing with emotions, and it didn't really work out for a lot of us because we're still, you know, the emotions, it still hasn't gone away for all of us, right? We're still, years later, we're still having these deep emotions. So we're getting to realize like that these deep emotions are just going to constantly it's going to be a constant in our life. And a lot of us are starting to realize, like, wait a minute, they don't have to be so depressing. It doesn't have to be so dark and heavy, right? There are periods of times where it is like that, of course, because, you know, some heavy grief is coming through to be purged and cleared. But there's also when we start to have, like, this sort of kind of like openness towards them, like where we more surrender and more enthusiastic about them, and we when we start to raise our vibration around these emotions, rather than when we're in a very immature state, our emotions is like World War III, because we're very immature. We relate to it very, very immaturely, and the way we relate to them, like through challenge, and we don't know how to handle them because we're a lot weaker, right? When you're young, you know, and you get a lot of emotions, it's like really heavy, it's hot and heavy and like all over the place because you're young, you're immature, like you don't really understand. But as you get older, you start to kind of, the same emotions come. It's like the same sort of grief and all of the things that come with being human, but we respond to it and we relate to it differently. And I feel like a lot of us have graduated to this point where either you're 25, 45, we're starting to really relate to these emotions from a more mature state, and the way where we actually are starting to feel a lot better in the way we relate to them, because emotionally we've actually matured. We've actually graduated through a lot of, you can say, these emotions, and I feel like that's what's granting us this reciprocity that a lot of us are experiencing. And also that it's also pushed us to be genuine. And the more that the more we were not genuine, right, the more the emotions actually felt even more heavy and dense and very painful. The more that we were not genuine with ourselves. So it's almost like the spirit guides were like forcing us or pushing us to be genuine through like the emotions and through the heaviness and the sadness or whatever these sort of burdens were emotionally, was a way for us to get genuine. And now we're starting to get genuine and discerning and starting to realize relationships that really did not support our emotions, like the well-being of our emotions, or really didn't give us this as a reciprocity, or really just didn't we couldn't express ourselves to the fullest, right? There was blockages in love. Either we were blocked or they are blocked, and we were, you know, both blocked and kind of, you know, swinging that back and forth all day, you know. And a lot of us are really becoming more genuine with our emotions because we're understanding that, you know, we want to be ready, right? It's like we want to be ready for the connection, right? Like we want to be ready for a connection, meaning, you know, when we do have this heart-to-heart, you know, connection with somebody, we do really want our heart to be mended, our heart to be whole, and we really do want to express our deep loving emotions and not shy away or feel embarrassed or shameful or judgmental. And we're beginning to understand that, you know, there is, you know, a genuine connection that is out there for us, right? It is available, and that we really do want to be ready for it. So a lot of us are in this sort of stage where we are becoming more genuine emotionally, and we're starting to let go of anxieties regarding like even our inner child, and expressing that and receiving that and being, you know, supported for that. And a lot of us are also like reevaluating our relationships, and we're looking at our relationships from a place of emotions. And a lot of us, maybe we didn't do that before. We were not looking at relationships from a state of emotions. We were looking at it from a state of basically not being emotionally available or emotionally connected, right? Because it made us feel safe, right? When it made us feel safe. But a lot of us are starting to realize, like, we are starting to, it's almost like fearlessly sort of kind of reevaluate relationships from a place of, I desire emotional fulfillment and family. Because family isn't just about, family at the core of it is about emotional fulfillment and about, reciprocity at emotional level and being able to share and care and support each other in a way that actually is honest and genuine. And you can't really be genuine or even really supportive of another person and who they are if you don't do that towards yourself. So we're reevaluating relationships, and a lot of us are really kind of waking up to ways in which we are participating in relationships or even like just partnerships or whatever kind of connections that we're having around us. And we're really starting to really reevaluate them and looking at them from a perspective of, we want to actually, like I said, you jump into the cold ocean and you get like shocked in a way that's very healing for you. Like it really heals you deeply. We actually are wanting to experience connections, relationships that are like jumping in the cold water, where we actually feel like it awakens like a deeper level of creativity, where it's not just about, just playing it safe and comfy and cozy, where we don't really express ourselves and we have acid, and the connections we have, there's not really like a sort of an expansion or sort of an awakening that happens within us because of this person, right? We're really starting to understand that a part of this spring, summer season is really about us becoming more genuine, and in relationships that are not genuine, where we're kind of half-assing it, we're not really into it, we're just kind of like pissing in the wind with it, that kind of thing, where, it's just like, here, there, never mind, that kind of thing. We're realizing how that doesn't really support our growth, and that in order to really express ourselves emotionally, we do have to be genuine, and we do, a lot of us who felt challenged by that, really deeply challenged by that, because we felt, fear of rejection, fear of it not working out, fear of whatever, the partnership, being, giving too much of yourself and it not being received, or not having that reciprocity, that balance between give and take, has caused us to kind of, half-ass it or give us a little piece of ourselves to people. But now we're taking back all these little pieces of ourselves, and we're realizing, like, I want to give the big piece of me. I want to give the fullness of me, not these little tiny pieces that I give to a bunch of people that I don't know if they're deserving of it, because I really haven't talked with them. I really haven't been genuine with them. You don't know if somebody's deserving of your time or energy unless you're genuine with them and you're straight up, like, fully, like, this is who I am, like, into the full extent, right? And you get to see how they respond to that, and if they're like, they can't handle it, or if there's no reciprocity, that's when they're not deserving, right? Or in any way, we kind of show up as this, genuine, being in the way that we are in the inner child, and we have this discernment, like, with the person, and we really trust our intuition about it, right? And a lot of us are starting to trust our intuition about connections and starting to really understand how valuable in a family, family, not just having kids, not the traditional, get married to whoever and have kids with whoever. We're really starting to look at, family, which is having that sense of genuine connection with people, right? Because we know there's family, and that's like family ties that are dysfunctional and unfulfilling, and parents are scorned and agitated and not really that kind of family where it doesn't really feel like you can express the fullness of yourself. A lot of us are beginning to understand on this planet a part of the human belonging, and the human sort of, you can say the human belonging is to have that emotional fulfillment. And we're really sort of stepping away from what we've been taught and what we believe based on like what our parents experienced in relationship and family and love. And a lot of us are starting to want to create our own sort of family dynamic. Like, we want to reinvent the family situation altogether, and we're really doing it through our own like emotional healing and emotional release, like releasing the childhood, like, dysfunctions and teenage dysfunctions and whatever we call dysfunction, which basically means like a pattern of low self-worth, or a pattern of blocking love, or not accepting or giving unconditional love, or really participating in partnerships, relationships, or encounters where you are where you prevent yourself from really being the fullness of who you are. So this particular period is very transformative, but it's happening at a very subtle level. So there's other periods where it's very intense. It's very like bam, like in your face, like it's a tower moment. I feel like this time is very subtle. I feel like a lot of this emotions are being released very subtly, even through music or through poetry, or just through listening to like even just calming nature sounds, or being by the ocean. And just a lot of these emotions are being released, and what's happening is that we're starting to experience more of this acceptance of emotions, and we're starting to feel like emotions are no longer a challenge, and that I shouldn't fear them, because we're starting to realize the depression we have emotionally, I feel like it's really represents like the depression that's going on this planet, as we're really starting to clear out these sort of negative energies. Like, we have a lot of negative like energies in the emotional body that are very, very like, in a lot of us, depression is a form of kind of getting at it, right? Getting at that inner negative, those negative attachments we have to the emotional body that are very, very aggressive, and a lot of inner anger. And a lot of us are doing it through, if you can say, depression, which is basically, it's trying to basically work itself out. It's trying to work itself through us. So, and a lot of us are graduating from this depression in the way that, in this sort of raising our vibration, just subtly in our own sleep and unconsciously or subconsciously, we're starting to we're starting to relate to our emotions in a mature state, where we're starting to understand what's going on. Right? Before, we were just like aimlessly just feeling depressed and not knowing what the hell is going on, and just feeling really bad about it, like something's wrong with us. We're starting to realize that there's a bigger picture, and that a part of these emotional releases are even bigger than ourselves. Like, it goes back like generations, like past lives. It has to do with parents, it has to do with childhood, and we're starting to realize all of that. And that's why we're feeling a little bit more not so like agitated or aggressive about it, like where we're like, no, I don't want to feel, we're not so stubborn anymore about it, because we're understanding that it's actually a part of nature's way of healing human beings. Depression is a natural way of healing human beings, and if we could just go through it and really go through it and have this sort of support system around us, even with friends or loved ones, or even really just support ourselves, we can actually get through it. And many of us are getting through it, and we're kind of realizing in these last final releases that it's really this inner hate, or this self-hate, or this aggression towards emotion, or this complete denial of emotions, or this low self-worth, or even these past relationships that were made based off of they came together based off of not being genuine, or being fearful, or love, or really fearing your own expression, like that your expression's not good enough, or that it won't be received, right? So a lot of us, we did kind of find ourselves in connections that did not give us reciprocity whatsoever, and just emotional pain. And we're really realizing how the shock of it all is really just a part of Mother Gaia's way, or the Spirit Guide's way of really getting us to expand beyond the patterns of our parents and of our lineage, who have literally just lived a life where they would just be in a relationship that was based off of low self-worth, that was based off of two people that didn't love themselves. And when two people don't love themselves in a relationship, all it is just conflict. It's just conflict, dysfunction, agitation, anger, and then the death of the relationship. So a lot of us, the universe is really pushing us and has pushed us through these relationship breakdowns in the past, to really like move beyond the relationships of the parents and of the generations before us, where literally we would just kind of have a relationship, and that relationship would just be like a back and forth, a push and pull, to the point where it would just break down, or there would be a death or collapse of the relationship. And a lot of us, the spirit guides are pushing us out of that old paradigm of basically unfulfillment due to self-hate that would sabotage and would react very negatively. So a lot of this depression is a lot of these negative like energies that are associated with the emotional body is actually being, you can say a lot of negative energies associated with the emotional body is actually being cleared out. It's working its way out of us. And the reason depression can feel like long road, right? Or like it's never ending, right? It's like you experience it at 15 and then like 18 and then like 20 and then like 22, and it's just, right? It's because a lot of these negative energies are so deeply ingrained into the emotional body from like lifetimes, from, you know, many generations, that in order to really work it out, it's going to be like a lifetime thing. And I think a lot of us are realizing that, and we're not so fearful anymore to actually go through it, those negative like energies, because we know that we're never going to be able to really level up beyond the family, whatever dysfunction or stagnation or upset or whatever sort of victimhood or just anger. We're not going to be able to really level up beyond the parent or the family anger regarding love or self-love, unless we actually really work it out of us. These negative energies that are associated with our parents and generations before us, we really do have to work it out through us. And we're doing that now in a subtle way, and we're actually feeling quite refreshed for many of us. Like when you go in a cold shower or go in the cold ocean and you feel refreshed. And this love that a lot of us are calling in, that we can feel in the subtlety of our own heart when we sleep or meditate, it really is a love that's going to be very refreshing. It's almost like taking a cold shower with somebody. It's like you don't want to do it, but then when you do it, you feel so good because you feel alive, you feel awakened, you feel refreshed, right? You feel inspired. Right? Taking a cold shower in the morning, it actually does something to you. It actually does something. It gives you metabolic health. It freshens the brain, and it purifies your blood, right? And though we don't want to do it, but when we do it, it gives us more creativity. And a lot of us are having these connections that are like a cold shower, in the way that it kind of jumpstarts our creativity. So if we've been like lackluster, lazy, procrastinating, indecisive, just kind of lounging around, lackluster for life, a lot of us are getting that cold shower. And when you get a cold shower in the morning, it wakes you up to the point where you're fully awake. You feel fully like charged up, refreshed. Your brain is clear. Your blood feels healthy. There's huge circulation going on around you. You feel like your metabolic health is like ready to go. And you feel so creative, right? When you wake up and you're like sluggish and like, I don't want to do that. A lot of us have been like that emotionally, where we wake up and like, like sluggish and lazy and like irritable and like angry and like, I don't want to do this. And a lot of us were changing. We're starting to emotionally change from this lazy, like, moodiness, right, into this emotional being that is actually enthusiastic about working through these emotions of the day, right? And how we're working through it is we're starting to really get enthusiastic about discovering our emotions. Because before we were lazy, or we're like, I don't want to do it, because we were actually very much intimidated, overwhelmed, and very stressed by emotions. That's why we're lazy, like, I don't want to do it. We're procrastinating and indecisive to actually feel, and we could delay it and delay it and delay it to the point where we delayed it so much that we became very numb. But all of that is really clearing away right now, because the divine has set up for us the connections, relationships, partnerships that are actually going to really be refreshing for us. And these connections that are coming in March, April, May, June are very refreshing in the way that it's about a give and take. It's not about it's not about being emotionally unavailable or being blocked from love. It's actually about being forgiving to what was, the imperfections of love regarding the parents and the generations before us, and being very, very welcoming of love that actually is shocking, like a cold shower, knowing that it's shocking you in a way that's actually going to exhilarate you. It's gonna heal you tremendously, and it's gonna get you moving, right? It's gonna get you moving in a way that you're gonna feel so alive. Just like when you take a cold shower, you feel so alive after, right? You're doing it's just like, it's really, really uncomfortable in some way, right? But then when you really go through it, it's just, you feel so alive. So a lot of us, we've been hesitant to experience love or even self-love, and we've been, reserved, or like, I don't want to do it, or no. But then a lot of us are going to do it because we're ready. A lot of us are ready to awaken and to, activate ourselves and to be inspired and to be, creative again in a way that is emotional and genuine, in a way that we're not fearful or intimidated or overwhelmed by love or the thought of unconditional love or the thought of reciprocity. A lot of us were like, this is what life is about. A lot of us know that family matters of the heart is about being genuine. And we can't receive a genuine partner if we're half-assing and being false and not true to ourselves and not true to our feelings. So we're really working with being true to our feelings first, so that we can start to navigate those feelings of why we're holding back, why we're, hesitant, why we're still holding on to the past, right? So then we can start to really have those aha moments, which is these emotional release that is really helping us to push past the ways we settle. Because the universe will not want us to settle, will not want us to use our free will to settle into relationships that are so of what we want. The universe wants us to have the total thing. It wants us to have the total fulfillment. Not damaging love, dysfunctional love, jealous love, unavailable love. It really does have set up for us this love of very fulfilling family love for those who actually, have what it takes, which we all do, to actually graduate through these emotions and clear out these grief and all this, past, whatever this past stuff is, that's guilt or regret, the feelings of the childhood and of the parents and all the generations before us. We're going through all these depressions so we can really just clear it out so we can be done with it, so that we can, start to actually level up emotionally, where we can start to really feel like more content. Right, we raise our vibration around emotions, where we're starting to feel really more content with love, more content with feeling, and more content with sharing, and we're starting to become more discerning and trustworthy to our own emotions, where when we feel something's off, we know something is off, or when we feel like this isn't it, we know this is not it, and we're not doubting it, we're not second guessing it, we're just going with it. Because we know the more sensitive we are in our heart, the more we're tapped into our feelings, the more that we are going to know about people. We're going to know if this is a pattern, if this is like a childhood wound, if this is just like a low self-worth, is this partnership or relationship is, if it's based off of family love, or kind of like just a tie or some lust or whatever that is. We're really starting to really see things for as they are, especially relationships. We're seeing it for what it is. We're beginning to learn, is this relationship going to be like a cold shower that awakens, enlivens me in the way that my creativity becomes explosive because of them in my life? Or is this relationship just a filler, or something that I do that just kind of gets the time going by? Or it's very shiny looking and it's beautiful to look at, but I don't really feel that I can really express myself to it, whatever this is. So a lot of us, we not just wanting something that's beautiful on the outside or just something to have. we're also wanting something that really does enliven us and kind of wake us up and really inspire us in a way that, like a cold shower, it actually brings this sense of like major just windfall of like powerful emotional healing and powerful like emotional joy. And we're being led by this desire to have that powerful emotional experience of healing, of freedom, and self-expression that we know we can't experience with just anybody, regardless of how handsome or how beautiful him or her is. We know that there has to be a more to that, and we're realizing that there is relationships that are coming in that are going to make us feel refreshed, where it's not just the same type of relationship that we keep doing and habitually doing and feeling unfulfilled and emotionally blocked off. We're actually going to be refreshed in the way we're connecting with people that actually sort of give us this sort of inspiration, like a cold shower, in the mind, in the way we think, in the way we feel, in the way we express ourselves, our sexuality, and our physical health. It's just going to give us this sort of like this refreshment. And it's really starting with ability to trust our feelings, to listen to them, to guide, to be led by them, and also to really be genuine and open and available to express in a way that is like a cold shower. You go in, you're like, but when you come out, you're like, it actually healed you in a way, like it actually, like it charged you up, it awakened you and inspired you, it gave you like this newfound creativity. And these sort of relationships we're having that are based off of like being emotionally guided and being like listening to your intuition and feeling like you're desiring to express yourself emotionally in a way that you never have, that's going to make you feel more creative and feel more united with yourself. These relationships are actually going to bring this newfound creativity in the spring and summer, where you're going to feel immensely change. And this immense change is happening at an emotional level, in the way that you're starting to look at things differently, because these people around you are actually supporting you emotionally and actually have your back emotionally, and actually are connections that are you emotionally are connected to in a way that gives you reciprocity. It's not a one-way street where you feel emotional and then they're blocked off, or you feel blocked off and they're emotional. It's actually a two-way street. It's reciprocity, where both you and this individual have a strong enough bond emotionally where you both want to, or not just two, could be many, where you all want to experience the sort of the shock, right, that brings about this higher creativity. And it's really going to be very, very tender, very respectful, these connections that are coming in the spring, summertime. But it's also going to be very fertile in the way that you feel like ideas and imagination is very like prolific and abundant, because you're coming together with people that are actually a part of your creative destiny. They're not just fillers, or not just you're lonely, or you're filling the void, or you feel like incomplete, or you feel like an emotional mess, or you feel like emotionally dissatisfied and you're trying to get something from somebody else. We've graduated beyond that. We've matured beyond that. These relationships that are coming in are not about the past and these younger version of ourselves. It's really about, we are kind of accepting ourselves to the fullest, expressing ourselves to the fullest, being really genuine, listening to our intuition. That's leading us to partnerships that make us feel very whole, where it's the time, it's like we could spend all day with these people and feel like the imagination, the creativity, and just the healing that happens is just so profound. And that's the difference. We're going to see a definite difference between when we're emotionally unavailable and that kind of relationship, and when we're emotionally receptive, and how when we really do trust and don't get so upset about these relationships of the past, and understand that it is pushing us to really move beyond the parents and the childhood low self-worth to get where we are today, right? Pushing past the ways we settle as our father, mother, grandparents did, right? Out of dysfunction and leveling up, which we have, we're actually experiencing relationships coming soon that are going to really shock us in the way that they have nothing to do with our childhood, nothing to do with our past relationships, past lives, nothing to do with that. It's like completely new. It's completely something that is shocking in the best way, in the way that we were maybe resisting or uncomfortable to, but is shocking us in a way that is really helping us to move on from the past and all whatever relationships we've had that didn't really work out, that caused a lot of emotional pain. And these relationships, partnerships that are coming in are actually about, having creative destiny together, like fulfilling a mission or having an experience of, one's wholeness, and really encouraging that, and really having this sense of emotional maturity where you can start to really share yourself in a more complete way, rather than sharing yourself half-assed, right? Sharing yourself in a more complete way. And it's all because of the things we went through, and all because of the things that we've learned.